The wrench slipped from Ryan's grease-stained fingers as the massive shadow fell across his garage. Through the reinforced transparasteel windows, he watched sleek Imperial cruisers descend like silver daggers through Earth's amber sky. Their engines hummed with the kind of power that could glass continents, yet they landed with surprising gentleness on the dusty lot outside his repair shop. 5 years. It had been exactly 5 years since that storm-lashed night, when two tiny, starving creatures had stumbled into his life. "Ryan!" Rose's voice crackled through the comm system from the orbital station, where she worked as a stellar cartographer. "The news feeds are going crazy. Imperial dragons, an entire fleet, they're landing all over Earth. What's happening?" He closed his eyes, remembering scaled wings no bigger than his palm, and eyes like molten gold that had looked up at him with desperate hunger. "I think," he said quietly, "I'm about to find out." The garage doors, built to accommodate the largest cargo haulers, seemed pathetically small as the first figure ducked through them. The Imperial guard stood nearly 3 meters tall, her scales shifting from deep emerald to silver as she moved. Behind her came another, then another, until Ryan's modest shop was filled with beings whose very presence made the air hum with ancient power. Ryan Chen, the lead dragon, spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in his chest. "Mechanic, citizen of the Terran Republic. You are difficult to find." "I wasn't hiding." Ryan wiped his hands on his coveralls, a gesture that felt absurdly human in the face of such majesty. "Just working." The dragon's head tilted, a gesture achingly familiar despite her massive size. "We know. You have always been just working, even when 2 lost dragonlings fell from a dying refugee transport. Even when Imperial law would have demanded you turn them over to the nearest authority, you simply worked." The memories came flooding back. That night, the rain hammering his roof like gunfire, the crash that lit up the sky. He'd found them in the wreckage. 2 tiny dragons no bigger than house cats, their scales dull with starvation and their eyes clouded with fear. The transport had been carrying refugees from the Outer Rim territories, fleeing some conflict Ryan had never fully understood. He should have called the authorities, should have followed protocol. Instead, he'd brought them inside, fed them scraps from his meager dinner, and later, when they'd grown stronger, shared his meals properly. For 3 months, they'd lived in his garage, learning to fly again, growing from palm-sized to dog-sized before finally disappearing one dawn, leaving only a small pile of perfectly arranged metal scraps as thanks. "They were just hungry," Ryan said. "Anyone would have—" "No," the guard captain interrupted, her massive form somehow managing to convey gentleness. "Not anyone. The transport captain, who should have protected them, sold them to slavers when the ship was boarded. The rescue authority who found the wreckage logged them as deceased to avoid paperwork. The settlement official who should have taken them in was paid to look the other way." She stepped closer, and Ryan fought every instinct that screamed at him to run. This close, he could see old scars along her neck, the kind that spoke of battles fought in the void between stars. "You were the 13th human they encountered, Ryan Chen. The first who offered them food instead of chains." "They were children," Ryan said simply. "Scared children." The other dragons in the room made a sound, not quite a purr, but something deep and resonant that spoke of approval. The captain's head dipped slightly. "Indeed. Those children have spent 5 years searching for you, learning your language, understanding your culture, rising through the ranks of Imperial service. They are," her voice carried a note of unmistakable pride, "exceptional beings." The floor trembled slightly, and 2 more figures entered the garage, smaller than the guards but still imposing. Their scales bore the deep blue-black of deep space with silver highlights that caught the light like stars. Ryan's breath caught. The eyes, those same molten gold eyes, now ancient beyond their years but still somehow carrying the wonder of the half-starved dragonlings who had curled up next to his space heater. "Hello, Ryan," the first said, her voice carrying accents of a dozen different worlds. "We remember you. We remember your kindness. We remember," the second added, "how you shared your food even when you had little, how you asked nothing in return, how you taught us that not all larger beings seek to dominate smaller ones." The captain spoke again. "The Empress has sent us to make you an offer, Ryan Chen. Your world faces challenges, resource scarcity, technological limitations, The pressure of joining galactic civilization. We offer partnership, protection, advancement. In exchange for what? Rayan asked, because humans always ask that question. Nothing, said one of the young dragons he'd once fed. This is not exchange. This is gratitude. You gave us our lives, said the other. We give our Empress's friendship to your world. Rose's voice crackled through the comm again, tinged with awe. Rayan, the news feeds. They're saying the dragons want to open trade relations. Advanced technology. Defense pacts. They're calling it the most generous offer in galactic history. How is this possible? Rayan looked around at the gathered dragons, at beings who could have conquered his world with a thought, who had instead come in peace because a simple mechanic had once shared his dinner. I fed 2 hungry children, he said softly. That's all. The captain's massive head lowered until she was eye level with him. That, she said, is everything. Outside, more ships were landing. Not warships, Rayan realized, but construction vessels, supply haulers, diplomatic transports. The beginning of a new chapter for humanity, born from a moment of simple compassion on a storm-lashed night. In the distance, Rose's shuttle could be seen racing toward the surface, eager to witness history in the making. Rayan smiled, wondering if she'd believe the real story when he told her. Sometimes the universe's greatest changes began with the smallest acts of kindness. The 2 dragons he'd once sheltered approached him, their massive forms somehow managing to convey the same grateful affection they'd shown as dragonlings. Thank you, they said in unison, for teaching us that strength and compassion are not opposites. Rayan Chen, mechanic, looked out at the ships that would transform his world, and simply nodded. After all, he had work to do.